Her voice trembled like a candle flickering in the wind. Everyone in the room leaned closer, not wanting to miss a single word. Grandma's last song wasn't sung loudly, it wasn't even steady. It came out as a whisper, soft, fragile, and weak. But that whisper carried more weight than any hymn sung in the grandest church. The words broke through the silence, and when they reached the end, the room broke too. Faces pressed into hands, shoulders shook, and tears fell like rain. Her last song, her last whisper, had broken everyone. And then, just as the final note hung in the air, her lips closed, her eyes drifted shut, and the room froze in fear of what would happen next. Before we get to that moment, let me take you back to the beginning, to how it all started. Grandma wasn't just a regular woman in her family. She was the heart. She was the laughter at the dinner table, the voice that sang lullabies when storms rattled the windows, the hands that baked bread that somehow always tasted better than anything in the store. Her name was Margaret, but everyone called her Grandma Maggie. She was strong, even when life wasn't. She had carried the family through poverty, through sickness, through heartbreak. But age was the one thing she couldn't carry through. Her hair had turned snow white, her body frail, and her steps smaller. Still, she always managed to smile. But lately, the family noticed the change. She coughed more often, her breathing was shorter, and her eyes, those bright, kind eyes, seemed to be fading. One Sunday afternoon, the whole family gathered in her small living room. The old wooden clock ticked on the wall, its sound louder than usual. Everyone felt it, though no one said it aloud. Time with Grandma was running out. "Grandma, tell us a story," little Lucy begged, climbing onto her lap. Grandma smiled, stroking Lucy's hair. "You've heard all my stories, child," she whispered. "Then sing us a song," Lucy pleaded. A hush fell across the room. Everyone remembered how Grandma used to sing. Her voice, though not perfect, had a way of softening hearts. She sang at weddings, she sang at funerals, she sang when there was no food on the table, just to keep hope alive. But she hadn't sung in months. Her voice was weaker now, like it belonged more to the past than the present. At first, she shook her head. "Oh, my voice is gone, sweetheart." But then, slowly, she sat up straighter. Her fingers tapped on the chair's armrest, as if keeping time with music only she could hear. She looked at her children, then her grandchildren, and said softly, "Maybe one more song." The family leaned in. Some pulled out phones to record, but most just sat frozen, not wanting to blink, afraid they'd miss even a second. She began. The first note was shaky, almost like it would break apart before it left her lips. But it didn't. It floated into the room, gentle and full of memory. Her voice was lower now, a whisper compared to what it once was, but it still carried weight. She sang of love. She sang of sacrifice. She sang of the nights she had prayed when everyone else was asleep. Her son James felt his chest tighten. He remembered those nights when he was a boy and woke to hear her soft singing in the kitchen while she sewed clothes to make ends meet. Her daughter Claire felt the sting of guilt. She hadn't visited as often as she should have. The grandchildren, too young to understand everything, only knew that Grandma's voice was different now, like it was floating away. As the song reached its final lines, her voice faltered. She closed her eyes, whispering the last verse. It wasn't just a song anymore, it was goodbye. And when the last whisper came out, everyone in the room broke. Lucy cried loudly. James put his head in his hands. Claire clutched her mother's frail hand, begging her not to stop. The song was done. The whisper was gone. But the silence that followed, that silence was louder than anything. And then, just as everyone tried to catch their breath, Grandma's chest rose with difficulty. Her hand slipped from Claire's grip. Her head tilted back slightly. Something was happening. Something none of them were ready for. The room gasped as one. And that was when the real storm began. The room was frozen. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. All eyes were fixed on Grandma Maggie. Her chest rose and fell slowly, unevenly, like a clock running out of time. Claire clutched her mother's hand tighter, whispering, "Mama, please don't leave us." "Not yet. Please." James stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. "We need to call someone." "The doctor, call the doctor." His voice shook, not with authority, but with fear. The grandchildren huddled together, their small faces streaked with tears, their little hearts not fully understanding what was happening, but knowing it was something big. Something final. But then, just when the panic had begun to take over, Grandma's lips moved again. Everyone leaned in close. Her voice was barely a sound now, thinner than the whisper of wind through a crack in the window. "Don't cry for me." The words were like threads, fragile and breaking, but they pierced every heart in the room. Claire's tears fell onto her mother's hand as she shook her head. "How can we not cry, Mama?" "How?" But Grandma didn't answer right away. She just closed her eyes, breathing shallowly, before opening them again to look at the family she had built, the family she had held together for decades. "I've sung my song," she whispered. "Now, you must sing yours." The room erupted into sobs. Even James, who had always been the strong one, who never showed emotion, crumbled into his wife's arms. The meaning of her words sank heavy into their souls. She wasn't just saying goodbye. She was passing the torch. She was telling them it was now their turn to carry the music of love, sacrifice, and faith forward. Then, suddenly, Grandma's frail body trembled. Her breathing stopped for a second, one terrifying second that felt like eternity. Everyone screamed her name at once. Claire shook her, Lucy cried out, "Grandma, don't go," and James fumbled to dial emergency services with shaking hands. And just when it seemed like the end had come, Grandma gasped. Her chest rose again with a loud, ragged breath. Her eyes opened wider than they had all day, and she looked straight at the ceiling. Her lips parted, but no one could make sense of the faint words that came out. She wasn't speaking to them. She was speaking to someone else. Her hand lifted slightly, trembling, as if reaching out for something unseen. The family watched in terror and awe, too afraid to stop her, too afraid to even breathe. And then, her body went still. The room fell silent. The only sound was the ticking of the old wooden clock. Was it over? Had Grandma truly sung her last whisper? James dropped the phone from his hand. Claire let out a scream so raw it cut through everyone's hearts. Lucy shook her grandmother's arm, sobbing, "Wake up. Please wake up." But before anyone could even process the pain, before anyone could accept what had just happened, Grandma's body twitched again. Her lips moved. Her whisper returned. This time, it wasn't a song. It was a secret. And what she said next shattered the family more than her last song ever could. At first, no one could believe it. Claire froze, her tears still wet on her cheeks. James leaned forward, his breath caught in his throat. The children, wide-eyed, clung tighter to one another. Grandma's lips moved slowly, painfully, but the whisper was clear enough for all to hear. "I'm sorry." The words fell like a stone into the silence of the room. "Sorry? Sorry for what?" What could Grandma Maggie possibly mean? Claire shook her head, pressing her mother's hand to her face. "No, Mama. Don't say that. You've given us everything. You don't need to be sorry for anything." But Grandma's eyes, dim yet steady, fixed on Claire's face. Then she shifted her gaze to James. And then to the rest of the family. Her trembling lips parted again. "There are things I never told you." The air in the room grew heavy. It was as though her words had unlocked a door no one even knew was there. James's voice cracked when he spoke. "Mama, what are you talking about? What things?" Her chest heaved, and her whisper came again, dragging like it weighed more than her fragile body could carry. "I carried secrets. For years." Claire's heart dropped. She had grown up thinking she knew everything about her mother, the sacrifices, the hardships, the love. But now, sitting there at the edge of goodbye, Grandma was hinting at something else. Something hidden. "Tell us," James urged, his hand trembling as he reached for her shoulder. "Please, Mama. Don't leave without telling us." The grandchildren stared, too young to understand the weight of the moment, but old enough to sense the storm gathering in the room. Grandma coughed weakly, her body shaking. Claire rushed to steady her, whispering comfort, but Maggie raised a fragile hand, signaling she needed to speak. "You all think I was strong, but there was a night long ago, her eyes clouded with tears as her whisper cracked. I almost gave up. I almost left you all. The words cut like a knife. Claire gasped, pulling back in shock. James's jaw dropped, his hands clenching into fists. What? Claire choked out. Mama, no. Grandma closed her eyes, and the memories played across her tired face. It was after your father died. The house was empty, no food on the table, and I thought I couldn't go on. Tears streamed down James's face now, though he tried to wipe them away. Claire covered her mouth, muffling her sobs. The grandchildren began to cry again, scared not just by the moment, but by the revelation that their grandmother, this pillar of strength, had once been so close to breaking. I stood in the kitchen, Grandma whispered, her voice fading in and out. I had nothing left. I thought leaving this world would be easier, but then I heard a sound. A tiny voice. Claire, it was you. Crying for me in the night. And James, you came in, holding your sister's hand. You said, Mama, don't leave us. We need you. Her weak smile trembled across her lips. That night, your voices saved me. I stayed because of you. I sang because of you. I lived for you. By now, everyone was sobbing openly. James covered his face, shaking his head. Claire leaned against her mother's fragile body, whispering, We didn't know, Mama. We didn't know. But before anyone could breathe through the pain, Grandma's whisper deepened again, and her eyes turned to the ceiling. There's more. Her voice was shaking, but the words carried weight. There's something I never told you about your father. The room stiffened. Claire's hand froze midair. James's eyes widened. What about Dad? James asked, his voice trembling. Grandma took another shallow breath, her chest rattling. Her whisper was barely a sound now, but it was sharp enough to slice through the room like thunder. Your father's death was not what you think it was. Gasps erupted all at once. Claire covered her mouth. James stumbled back a step, nearly knocking over a chair. The children stared in confusion, not understanding the depth of what had just been spoken. The air thickened with fear and questions. Everyone leaned in, desperate, trembling, waiting for her to finish. But before Grandma could utter another word, her body convulsed violently. Her breathing turned ragged. Her eyes rolled back. The family screamed her name. And then, in the middle of the chaos, the truth that Grandma had just opened the door to hung there, unanswered. The room turned into chaos. Claire clutched her mother's shoulders, shaking her lightly as if the motion could keep her alive. Mama, Mama, stay with us. Don't stop now, she cried through streams of tears. James nearly tripped as he rushed forward, grabbing his phone again. His trembling hands dialed the emergency number, his voice shaking as he begged for help. My mom, she's not breathing right. Please hurry. Please. The children screamed and sobbed, their voices piercing the air. Little Lucy buried her face into her older brother's chest, whispering through her tears, Grandma's going to die. She's going to die. But then, just as despair filled the room, Grandma's body jerked, and she coughed violently, pulling in another shallow breath. The sound was weak, broken, but it was life. Everyone froze. Relief and fear tangled in the air. Claire's hands shook as she wiped the sweat from her mother's forehead. You're still here, Mama. Oh, thank God, you're still here. But Grandma's eyes fluttered open only halfway, her gaze cloudy and unfocused. Her lips quivered, forming words that scraped their way into the silence. Listen to me. The room went still again. Every heart pounded. James knelt by her side, his face close to hers. Mama, we're listening. Please, just tell us. Her whisper was shaky, scattered, but it carried the weight of a storm. Your father, he didn't just die. She coughed, and Claire leaned in closer, terrified that they would miss even a single syllable. He was taken from us. The words hit like lightning. Claire's eyes widened in shock. James froze, his jaw dropping open. What do you mean, taken? James demanded, his voice cracking under the weight of fear. Grandma's trembling hand lifted weakly, pointing toward the old wooden cabinet in the corner of the room. In there, a letter, the truth. Claire gasped, turning to the cabinet. James shot up instantly, nearly tripping as he stumbled toward it. His hands shook as he pulled the drawer open, searching through old photographs, faded papers, and small keepsakes that smelled of dust and time. And then he found it. An envelope, yellowed with age, with his father's name scrawled on the front in handwriting that looked eerily familiar. "Claire!" James shouted, holding it up. But before he could even open it, Grandma suddenly groaned, her body twisting in pain. Her fragile chest heaved violently, and her eyes rolled back again. "No! Mama, hold on!" Claire screamed, shaking her mother's hand. The children cried louder, their tiny voices breaking the air. James dropped the letter in panic, rushing back to kneel beside his mother. The clock ticked on the wall, mocking them with every passing second. Grandma's lips quivered again, her whisper faint as dust. "The truth will break you, but it must be told." And then, with one last tremor, her body went limp in Claire's arms. "No!" Claire screamed, her cry echoing through the small house. James fell to his knees, clutching his hair in both hands. The grandchildren collapsed into sobs, their little bodies shaking. The room was drowning in grief. But on the floor, between the chair legs and the puddles of tears, lay the old envelope, unopened. And inside it, whatever truth Grandma had carried all those years, waited to be discovered. The envelope lay on the floor like a ghost. Its yellowed paper, its edges frayed with time, seemed to pulse with secrets. No one touched it at first. The family was too lost in their grief, their cries filling the air as Grandma's frail body rested lifeless in Claire's arms. Claire rocked back and forth, whispering through her sobs. "Mama, no, 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 you can't leave us like this. Not now. Not after what you said," her voice cracked, breaking into silence. James's eyes locked on the envelope. His heart pounded. His mind spun with Grandma's last words, "The truth will break you, but it must be told." His hands shook as he reached for it, but before his fingers could touch, Claire's voice rang out, sharp and desperate. "Don't." James froze, staring at her. "What do you mean, don't?" She wanted us to read it. Claire's eyes, red and swollen with tears, glared at the letter as though it were poison. "What if it's something we can't handle? What if it destroys everything we thought we knew about Dad?" The children stared at the envelope too, fear written on their faces. Even they could feel the heaviness pressing down on the room. James clenched his jaw, frustration burning in his chest. "Claire, we have to. We can't just leave it there." She pointed to it for a reason. She wanted us to know. Claire hugged their mother's still body tighter, her sobs shaking her frame. "But Mama also said it would break us. I don't know if I can survive being broken any more than I already am." Silence fell. The ticking of the clock sounded louder now, filling every corner of the room. And then, a sound broke through. It was faint. A rasp. Everyone froze. The children gasped, clutching one another. James whipped his head toward his mother's body. Claire's eyes went wide as she felt it. Grandma's chest rose again, shallow but real. Her lips trembled, releasing a ghost of a whisper. "Mama!" Claire cried, her tears turning to disbelief. "You're still here." "Oh, thank God, you're still here." James rushed forward, kneeling beside her. "Mama, don't try to talk. Save your strength, we'll call the ambulance." But Grandma's frail hand twitched, barely lifting from her lap. She pointed weakly not at the phone, not at her children, but at the envelope. Her whisper cut through the panic like a blade. "Read it." Claire's heart stopped. James's eyes widened. The children whimpered in fear. "Mama, are you sure?" Claire begged, shaking her head. "Please don't make us." But her mother's lips moved again. No strength left for sound this time, only the shape of the word. "Read." James snatched the envelope with trembling hands. His chest heaved as he tore it open, pulling out a folded piece of paper that had yellowed with time. His eyes scanned the words written in hurried ink, and his face went pale. "What is it?" Claire demanded, her voice cracking. "James, what does it say?" James swallowed hard, his throat dry. his hands shaking so violently that the paper rattled. His eyes brimmed with tears as he read aloud. It says, "Dad didn't die in the accident. He was murdered." The room erupted in gasps and cries. Claire nearly dropped her mother's hand. The children stared in shock, not fully understanding the word murdered, but feeling the terror in the adults' voices. James's voice cracked as he continued, his tears dripping onto the page. It says, "Someone close to the family was involved. Someone we know." Claire's breath caught in her throat. Her whole body shook. No, that can't be true. It can't. James gripped the letter tighter, his knuckles white. Mama's been carrying this secret all these years, and now she wants us to know. The room fell silent, the weight of the revelation pressing down like a crushing stone. And then, suddenly, Grandma's body jerked violently, her eyes flying open wide with a look of sheer terror. Her whisper returned, ragged and frantic, cutting through the air. "He's still out there." The family froze. Claire's scream tore through the room. James dropped the letter. The children clung together, shaking. Grandma's whisper had not only shattered their hearts, it had filled the room with a new deadly fear. The room was no longer just heavy with grief, it was drowning in terror. The letter lay open on the floor, the ink bleeding into their hearts like poison. Claire held her mother's trembling hand, whispering frantically, "Mama, what do you mean? Who's still out there? Tell us, please tell us." But Grandma Maggie's eyes darted wildly, her lips quivering as she gasped for breath. Her voice was no longer just a whisper, it was a broken cry, urgent and sharp. "The one who took him," she coughed, her whole body shuddering as her chest rattled. "He watches, he waits." James gripped the arms of his chair, his face pale as snow. "Mama, no, don't say that. Don't tell me he's still alive, don't tell me he's still near us." His voice cracked, fear burning through his words. The children whimpered, clinging to Claire's side. Little Lucy buried her face against her aunt's arm. I'm scared, Auntie." Claire pressed her lips to her mother's hand, her tears spilling onto the fragile skin. "Mama, who? Please, just say the name. Give us the truth." Grandma's gaze shifted, her clouded eyes locking on James. Her hand twitched as if trying to point, then fell back weakly. "Not safe," she whispered. "Even now, not safe." James shook his head violently. "No, Mama. You can't leave us like this. Don't give us half the truth. We need to know who killed Dad. We need to know who's out there." Grandma's lips parted again, but all that came out was a rattling breath. Her eyes fluttered, half open, half closed. She looked as though she was seeing something beyond the room, something the rest of them couldn't see. Claire sobbed harder, gripping her tightly. "Don't leave us in fear, Mama. Please, don't leave us not knowing." And then, with a sudden strength that seemed to come from deep within her soul, Grandma lifted her head slightly. Her eyes widened, and for one terrifying moment, it was as if she was staring at someone standing right there in the corner of the room. Her last whisper sliced through the silence. "He's closer than you think." The words froze every heart. Claire screamed, James staggered back in horror, and the children wailed in panic. But before anyone could beg for more, before anyone could press her to speak again, Grandma's body went still. Her eyes dimmed, her chest sank, and her trembling finally ceased. The room fell into a silence so deep it was suffocating. The old wooden clock ticked, counting the seconds they would never get back. Claire collapsed onto her mother's chest, screaming, "No. Mama, don't go. Not like this. Not with that secret still hanging over us." James fell to his knees, clutching the letter in his fists, his tears soaking the paper. "We'll find him, Mama. I swear it. Whoever did this, whoever's still out there, we'll find him." The children sobbed into each other's arms, the fear of Grandma's last words settling deep into their young hearts. The family was broken, not only by loss, but by the haunting truth that death had left in its wake. Grandma's last song had been a whisper that broke them. But her final words left them shattered in another way, living in fear of a shadow from the past that still lingered in the present. And as night fell over the house, the family sat together in the silence, clutching one another, the unopened questions clawing at their souls. The lesson was clear, though it burned to accept it. Sometimes love holds secrets, not to protect itself, but to protect the ones it loves. And sometimes, the heaviest truth isn't the one we carry, it's the one we're forced to inherit. Grandma was gone, but her last whispers still echoed in every corner of that room. And none of them would ever forget it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more touching video stories that inspire and heal hearts.